All right. So, Dill, that's a great question. When you're making offers, you can do three different things that I can think of right now. Low cash, your seller finance. You can get spicy and do the option, like you said. Number four is you can do a lease with an option. They're all different things that kind of work off the same premise. They're just
Hmm.
a little bit different in their own way, but they ask for the same thing. So low cash, we're always going to buy that if we can get low enough. I mean, if they essentially if we bite on our risk on day one, of course we're going to buy it. So that's always a big thing. But the seller financing gives us a win on the back end on the financing side of it, and then the option just gives us the ability to buy it. A lot of people don't like options just because it gives options might work better with off market stuff. With on market, they don't want to do a long term option just
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they already listed. If they do a long term option, they'll have to hold it for that option period. But if you find stuff on market and they're not necessarily ready to sell, you can do an option 100%. I think it'll work. Now the lease works great as like a little hail mary play. Is you can offer to do a lease where what's a lease? A lease is, hey, I'm gonna lease your land for 12, 24 months. I want a
Hmm.
24-month lease with the option to buy at your price. What that is essentially seller financing. Lease with the option to buy for 24 months. And you'll have payments every month, but that's okay if you have the option to buy and all the payments go to the price. Or something
Right.
like that. It depends what price it is based off the purchase price and what you think it's worth. So a lot of times it's just getting sellers to maneuver. So it's just having those things. So one thing I'm noticing is a lot of markets that are booming, and this is for people that are doing stuff in other markets. They're willing to wait for entitlements in most cases, especially if they know they have something valuable and they know it needs entitlements. They're willing to wait for approvals or something to that effect, especially if they're knowledgeable. But when it comes to for whatever reason, Texas people that just don't get it. They think that they can sell it and sell for cash and get their price point. And like I said, it's teach their own, but a lot of times they don't understand that to get their price in cash, they have to wait in most cases for that approval. There was a tweet literally yesterday on how to, as a seller, how do you partner with a developer? How do you partner with a developer to essentially have something done with it? So people are throwing out like, wait, have the seller wait in second position and just carry the land, be equity owner. I've talked to a lot of land people, especially I talked to a land developer out of Atlanta. He's one of my original early on land mentors when I first got into the game. And he did a couple industrial deals like that. I remember he said he did like two or three. Two ended up working out great, and he got equity for bringing his equity in the land, and
Hmm.
some developed it on it. And then one went south, and he lost his position in land because he did a second position loan. So he went in second position as equity, and then the GPs essentially fumbled the bag, and he lost his equity position from the hard money lender slash banker, whoever financed it. So it's harder to get people to go in second position. Not saying it can't be done. We have a deal right now that we're buying with seller financing that the seller's getting a promissory note. They're not even in first, second, or on the property. That's just a promissory note. So there's people out there that are willing to do whatever it takes to get the deal done. So there's nothing off edge that's out of hand.
Right.
You don't know what you can offer or what they'll take based on you just got to work the conversation and kind of work whatever you can get out of it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool strategies with that you don't know if you don't ask. So you kind of have to ask with everybody and see what happens.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, because I know we've spoken on previous calls before. For example, I have this one agent. She says, "Hey, the seller's objection is, hey, what happens if you don't pay and then they get stuck with the land that's developed? But hey, like I said, they get the best piece and someone invested money into the property. So worst case, it's better than what they are at right now, kind of thing."
Hey Anthony, should we drop a little sauce on this part? It's a little saucy.
Okay, it's a little saucy.
No objections. So I guess I'm gonna say it. People do this with businesses, and that's where I think that idea came from. But one thing, side note here is that if you're from another industry, like I was talking to I got a haircut today, as you can see, I am shaven, beard's trimmed and everything. My barber said that he's from car sales, so I was explaining the real estate transactions, and it clicked for him because he's used to car sales, so it's very similar. But you can use other strategies and other niches towards real estate a lot of times, or a version of it. You have to kind of understand the nuances, but you can bring that same strategy over. So the answer to your question is you can provide, usually if you're bringing in a lender, they're always going to want first, which is understandable. But how do you remedy your seller taking second or another position? So people do this to businesses is they'll leave them on as owner. They'll leave them on as owner with an equity position, but no decision making. So let's say you're buying this property and you're getting a hard money loan to buy it, and they need first because the hard money loans are going to do first every time. Is you can have your second position private seller financing equity be a part owner. Ask them to be second, they don't take second. Ask them to be part owner, and they're just a silent partner on the ownership, and they get paid when you do. So there's a lot of, like I said, that's the sauce a little bit. Is they're still in a preferred position, but not in second, and they're not in first either. So you have like a valuable equity position to offer the owner via seller financing by offering them title ownership as an equity partner.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that, Daniel. I like that sauce. Like I said, the goal is, hey, yeah, make them feel comfortable, but the goal is, we can control it, work on the property, and do what we gotta do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guess we'll kind of delve into this. This is good stuff that I think is your this is kind of high level for maybe a lot of people here, but if you have any questions, please hit the chat. But I want to talk about like equity positions. So a lot of times when you're raising money, you need to describe what type of equity position they're going to be in based off of the type of capital they're putting in. So in the financing world, it's called your capital stack. So let's talk about a capital stack a little bit. So if you guys want to Google this, you can probably find some articles, but we'll talk a little about a capital stack. But you guys will learn something. It's good stuff. So your capital stack is you have your different equity positions based off of your capital needed to finance. So if you have, let's say we're doing a regular, everybody does houses, you're doing a house flip. When you're getting a house flip, you're going to need usually a hard money lender. It's usually they're getting first position, they're getting the favorable position of the debt for a deed of trust, just in case they need to foreclose. And then you have owner, debt, and then other positions behind that. So you might have, for instance, like a house might have the owner of the property might be John Smith. The bank is Bank of America, and it might go up or down depending on how you want to do it. It might be Bank of America. They might have a home equity line of credit. They might have a HELOC. Boom, another position. Your and this could be like your capital stack for this. Capital stack is usually used for buying, but you could take your equity positions on the property. So there might be IRS lien. There might be different types of liens on the property that fall underneath your HELOC and all those other positions. So you can combine that as an owner to own property, essentially. But when you're buying as a flipper or an investor, you usually have the owner, your hard money, and then your private money. Because usually, most of the time, you're using private money to maybe put the 10% down, or like most hard money loans, you have to put down 10-20% down, and it has to be a certain loan to value, and that's how it kind of goes. So you need your owner, your first lender loan position, and then you might need your, whether it's private money or your money. Technically, you're part owner on the equity stack, and that's what you need to do a deal. So with the bigger the deal, you need more positions on there to make the deal work. So as you do bigger deals like we're doing, you might have the owner, which we want to take title. Your first position might be hard money loan or a really big private lender. or something, and then you bring in another lender underneath him to entitle or develop. And then whenever you have the opportunity to refi, you wipe out those other positions. So it kind of work. You have to use Anthony's kind of coining the word. I've never heard it anywhere, but it's hybrid capital. You have to use hybrid capital a lot, especially in larger transactions, to do deals. So a lot of times when we're asking for seller financing, like for instance, we did. Anthony talks about his one of his first deals. No idea how this works and how he did the deal, but essentially he got a $220,000 property from the owner. The owner deeded to him, so now he's in ownership position. Ownership position. Essentially, they're in first with $10,000 down, which makes it his private equity that he's putting into the deal is $10,000. But then he was able to make a huge ROI on that $10,000 just by putting in that. So you have to look at what is needed to raise money, and his $10,000 is in the riskiest position because if the deal goes bad or south, you can't get that back because you're in a worse position than everybody else. So you really have to relay, and especially when we're raising money, we have to. This is why we give such high ROIs. I think Angie asked us last week of how much ROI we're giving to our lenders. We give a lot of ROI to our lenders because they're not in a preferred position, and that's why they're not in a preferred position of the capital stack, and they're in the riskiest place to be. So I have a deal I'm doing now with a lender, especially when you're having conversations with lenders. You need to let them know what their security is. So I'm doing a deal with lender right now. He's lending on the deal, but he's also the buyer. And then we're essentially first position or JV partner on the deal. But for him, I didn't really want to have a question of what his security was. And if he's the owner, he has to sign off on everything. So a lot of lenders, they like being in that first position. But if you're going to give somebody that ability to do that, they have the ability to screw you over, which is how we lost money last year. We did that same strategy and we're doing it again, but it's one of those things where you have to understand your position, and whoever the owner is, or even that first position whoever the owner is could potentially screw you over on the deal, depending on where you are on the capital stack.
Hey, I think you went a little too far, man. You went off the deep end of the pool.
Probably.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about the different types of capital, like private money, hard money, the benefits, like the good and the bad about those? And then why would you want to put that? Why do you need that for bigger deals?
Yeah. So the hard money is great because it's usually just straight interest. Like a lot of people that do flips, they're buying 12% interest with 2 points underwriting points. So essentially what that means is it's flat fee. It gets expensive the longer you carry, but it's very predictable as far as your capital. But you have to fill out loan docs. They're going to look at the deal. They're going to look at you. They're going to make you maybe sign a personal guarantee. They're going to be first deed of trust. They're going to ask you to put a down payment. It's going to be a lot more hoops to jump through, but it's a good capital because it's very predictable. And depending on your lender, they have a certain lending box per se, just like we have a buy box. They have a certain lender box that if you fit in that criteria, they're going to lend you, especially if you have a good track record or a good track record with them. You pretty much have the world at your fingertips, and you can buy whatever you want because you're a preferred borrower from that hard money lender. So it's a great position to be in. We recently got a connection to that, but we didn't have that at all starting. So we didn't have that ability. And then you have private, which I think private's is probably the best part, because private capital, they're not. It could be as direct as they're still in first position, they're still doing points and underwriting, but it's more based off of your relationship, and the ROI is very subjective. I mean, you can make them. Texas has a law where you can't give it over 18%. We've paid our lenders over 18% because they're a partner in the deal, so they get equity. So we'll put them in as a partner and we'll kind of push them their equity over 18%. And that's how we give them their 18% because they're private capital. But if you get a lot of that, you have essentially a blank check to buy whatever you want. And they're following your discretion as the professional to buy good deals. Of course, they're still going to underwrite them, but they're usually going to underwrite them loosely. And it can get that private capital can be as diligent as like, hey, send me the address and pictures, and I want to go see the property before I lend on it. Or it could be as loose as, hey, I'll just send you a wire and let me know when it's done. But that's the scale of private capital. Go ahead.
let's talk about now how to buy a big deal using blended capital, right? So you're going to have private money at 12%, very predictable, more institutional. They want to take a look at your personal assets, what you have, how much cash you have in your account, that kind of stuff. And then you have private, where it's just a handshake, right? They don't run your credit, they don't look at your account, they don't look at anything. There's just somebody that just has money and they just want you to have it instead of them. And then they'll just wait for a return. We set it up where there's no monthly payments. We just pay upon sale of the property. So that keeps us from being over leveraged when we deal with private. So that's why we're willing to pay them a higher amount to a higher return, because they're just waiting there the whole time to get paid, and they don't call you and check on you. They're not worried about the deal. There's no 12-month running clock. It's just going to sell when it sells, and then they get paid out. And then the last position is going to be having a seller carry, right? Which is, I think that's the ultimate strategy, because if you go around, let's say you lock up $10 million worth of ranches next week and you get 0% debt on all that. Well, now you just took out like a $20 million loan, right? And you can't really do that with private hard money or anywhere, especially not traditional banking. But you can grant yourself all that debt by dealing directly with the sellers. So now let's talk about buying a big property using the three types of capital, or three.
One thing I want to say about the hard money is they usually want monthly payments. So usually you're going to have good credit. Like I said, I talk about all the stuff about hard money, but they're going to make you make monthly payments. And there's private lenders that'll do the same thing, but we trained our lenders to not do that, because having that overhead, I mean, if you got 10 deals going on under $1,000, $2,000 each, that's a lot of overhead monthly just to cover that debt. So debt service is a huge thing whenever you're borrowing, which is why we try and work with private lenders with no debt service, and they just get paid on the end, which is the sweet spot to be in. All right, now how do you do a big deal with private capital and blended capital? So let's talk about I want to talk about Jet Road. I know if people are new here, you'll hear about this. I mean, if you heard it before, but we'll talk about on the capital side. So we did a deal back in 2022. I think it was like April 2022. I had to look at the dates recently, but April 2022. So it's been two and a half years since we actually took title. But that deal was $1 million. It was seven figures. Our first seven-figure deal we did. It was $1,070,000 purchase. Now, what we did was, remember, we're talking about capital stacks, is we negotiated $200,000 down, which is 20% down, and then we had 24-month balloon on the 800 grand. But who determines the payments? Well, we just negotiated 2,500 a month. If you do the math on that, doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. We just said 2,500 a month, 200 grand, 2,500 a month. So
how much should that monthly payment should have been, just for context?
4,500. It should have been 4,500 if we did like a 360 equal payments or some bullshit like that. It would have been like 4,500 or something like that. It would have been a lot more. Here, I'll do it right now. 360, 800 grand. It's 2,200. So it's right around that 360 AM. But we got 2 months seller financing, so that's where we're kind of get 2,500 a month. I thought it was more, but yeah, 2,500 a month. So 200 grand down. That's what it costs. This one had the seller financing wanted monthly payments. So what we have first is the sellers in first. We had to bring 200K of private equity, and they're in the worst position underneath the seller financing. And then we're paying 2,500 a month. And then that deal took us 9 months to sell. We paid off the seller financing, and then we paid off the private equity, and that's how we ended up doing the deal. And then we ended up getting the last tail end. So us as investors, you're technically the tail where your profit is. And that's something we do with our lenders, is we always make ourselves the tail. We pay ourselves last on every deal that we buy with other people's capital. So we're always the tail of the last part of the equity, which is ours. So because we're in the riskiest position. And I think that's the best place to be, especially if you're borrowing, because it pushes your lender to be in good position. It pushes your seller financing to be in good position. And you can negotiate the seller financing where they can carry with you over a 3 to 5 year balloon, which I think you talked about a little bit with Bill, as like having them do a 5-year balloon. When you do that, you get to pay yourself in front of them, and then you can kind of carry that hybrid capital of the debt service in between on the tail end of receiving the capital. So it kind of pushes them back, but it's a great position to be in whenever you get seller financing.
Hey, Daniel, so how is all this pertinent now? So now I'm out in the field. I'm trying to buy a $3 million ranch so I get my first deal ever and get a big home run. Why do I care about all this?
You care about it because everybody wants to be secure. everybody wants to be in the most secure part of the deal because there's risk involved. Any investment out there has risk. Well, what is the risk? The risk, if you're first position, the risk is you have to foreclose. The risk, if you're seller financing, are they in second position or are they owner? So you have to relay that risk to the seller and why they want to be in that position. If there's private capital, hey, if I'm putting 50% down, that might be private, it might be a hard money loan, but that's risk that I'm bringing to de-risk your position from seller financing. So, and every seller is going to be completely different on where their risk valuation is. I mean, we have a deal right now. Like I said, we're trying to buy it in May. The seller financing isn't attached to anything, and it's for 5 years. So we get 5 years of debt, not even attached to the property. So there's a lot of maneuvering of the capital stacks based off of everybody's risk tolerance.
Hey, do you want to break that down for him, or is it too early? Because again,
It's
I
too
think
early.
you said a lot of blurry stuff on there.
Yeah, it's too early. We'll have to read you guys into that one later, but
Okay, yeah, you guys need to take a look at this deal, and I'll tell you why. We're gonna have zero into it, and then we're gonna get paid to buy it, and to the tune of like 20 to 70,000 to buy it at closing, and then there's like monthly cash flow here, or about 400 grand inside the deal, and so zero out of pockets. You got infinite returns on this one, so that's why we can pay back 50% or 25% or something. Like in the house world, that'll bring your business down, right? You can't afford to pay those kinds of returns back. But in the land world, that's nothing. We could easily pay back 20, 30, 40, 50. And for this reason, we could get a deal like this where it's just infinite returns. We have, not only do we not have $1 into it, we're getting paid 20 to 70 to take it.
Yeah, that's a juicy deal that we'll probably cover another call, or I might not cover it at all. I don't know. I feel like I said too much already. Yeah, but it's you have to understand your position and your capital position, what your position is, even as the wholesaler slash investor, what your position is and where you want to be and what you can negotiate. So, for instance, you want to jump into Somerset. Somerset, we kind of went unorthodox a little bit.
The neighborhood or the 44 acres?
The 243.
I think we've covered that one a few times. I was trying to stick to this theme of raising capital, and then how again, like, how is this most beneficial? So I think on one side you're out looking for different land deals that you could pick up, right? So that if you're doing that every single day, that's kind of like the core of what we do, both big and small. We'd like to focus on a big one for you no matter what, but also feeding yourself along the way with smaller deals. But then also on the capital raising side, and how is that valuable? And then what ways could it be more valuable than even the land deals themselves?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So the seller financing is the holy grail of what we do in a nutshell. And a lot of people miss it because we don't know, a lot of people don't know how to properly position themselves, especially with the seller financing. But the seller financing with land is what makes the land game insane, literally insane. And we're barely getting to touch the ramifications of that. But I'm telling you, if you get seller financing on a lot of big properties or even small properties, you can get a lot of upside in a lot of different ways using the seller financing. Somebody just texted me. Sorry. Yeah, but that's the biggest part. So I think asking for it. One thing that we might be pivoting to is offering more money down and having the seller essentially maneuvering the capital stack. So we talk about capital stacks, you kind of, if you've been paying attention. So if we can put a larger down payment down, we can move the seller into not necessarily a worse position, but a non-favorable position that they might not be open to if we put 10% down, if that makes sense. So
yeah, okay. So the seller's not, they're going to want first position because they want the most protected position. We're offering something weak, like 5 or 10% down. There's no way I could do that. I would never do that. I got to get more down. Like, okay, well, we could probably get you 30 down or 40% down or 50% down, but the lender would be in first position, not you. And then now it's their call, right? Do you want half your money now, or do you want 10%?
Yeah, and that's a maneuvering technique. Is we make them choose their position, and this is to our sellers. They might not understand the capital stack as a whole. They might not understand it, But you as a buyer have to understand the capital stack, because if you can offer a favorable position to your lender and it makes the seller take a lesser position, now you got a win-win where you can give the seller what they want, but they get a lesser equity position on the capital stack, and you can still make a win-win scenario. Because a lot of times they want to be in first, but hey, if I give you a large down payment, you're going to be down here. Okay, that makes sense. Boom. Now you got a deal. So it's you have to understand, you really have to understand that the where the capital is going, who the security, what position are everybody in, and you can even tell the seller like, hey, I'm getting paid last on this. If you're getting paid last, hey, I might do ABC with this, and I'm gonna get paid when you get paid, And a lot of times, like, okay, so he's gonna do all the work on my unmovable property, because remember, these land sellers, they have a asset that's very hard to move. You got to understand that thing. So they're already in a rough position as it is. They might be the owner with 100% equity, but they still own a anchor that can't be moved very easily. So by you putting this different type of terms together, you're now making that a movable object movable now. Let me James says, more skin in the game, so investors believe in you on the tail end. Any agents in here that can chime in and explain how to bypass the gatekeeper mentality of most agents? How to bypass the gatekeeper of most agents? If you're doing MLS stuff, I mean, you have to. A lot of times, you have to cut through what's their concerns. Their concerns is, are they going to get paid, and um, when are they going to get paid? Because nobody does nothing for free. So, Anthony says, infect the agent and make them work for us. That is the key point that we do. So remember, we talk about a large land, or land in general, is just an immovable anchor. You offer them incentive. So many land parcels get listed and never sold all the time. So that means the agent's working for free. And if agent works for free long enough, he's not going to work on every land deal property he gets. He's just going to kind of let it sit, because 5 times out of 10, or whatever that ratio is, he's working for free, which is why agents are bad at land. So what we do is, Kyle put it in there. He says we double side the commission, and we're here to help. We're a service provider, and we're gonna pay you both sides of it. I have an agent on my side, but I'll give you both sides of the commission if you help me work this deal, because you have the listing agreement with the seller. We try and get the agent on our side is the shortcut. What's your typical threshold down payment to push them into second position, and real deal examples? This is going to be deal basis. Every deal is different. Like I said, we're buying a deal right now where they're not even on the title. They're getting a promissory note, which isn't even on the capital stack. That's how crazy that deal is. They're not even on the capital stack. It's just a handshake. Angie says, look up the owner of record and call them directly. If the agent works with you, or call them asking if they want to sell, not even reference the listing. So Angie has a good point, is you can hit them up directly and say you don't even know it's for sale, because you don't even know what property it is. That's 100% fair game. Kyle has a deal he's working right now that the agent's being crazy. So I told him to send a direct mail piece, whether he writes it out or types it out, and just sends it directly, pertaining to what's going on. Kyle says we are the only offers they have. So if you have them double side, they're going to do everything they can to get it done, and they have monetary incentive to get the deal done. 100%. Have them or a friend in their brokerage help you. If they're not comfortable, then it's just two friends working together to get paid. Kyle actually did this. He actually has a deal right now where this is exactly what he did. He had another person from the brokerage work as our um, lender on the buy side, or our agent on the buy side, and the seller, his friend in the same brokerage is representing the seller, and it's just kind of work. They already work together, so it's just, hey, we say this, we go back to the seller, and it's a very cohesive relationship. So there's no friction. So you want to take away the friction as much as possible whenever you're dealing with agents. So the main thing is always, are they going to get paid, and what time are they going to get paid? and that's the biggest thing. So the deal we bought in Poteet, that was one of their concerns, and they got paid at closing, and that was like 60 days from when we actually contacted them. So every deal is completely different, but you have to understand what their concerns are, the seller and the agent, if there's an agent involved, and what everybody needs to make money on this transaction, just to let it go through. Because people want to gatekeep. A lot of agents, they want to gatekeep and they want to control the listing. It's so funny. So I have a side story for this. So when I was in Atlanta, I started doing land back then when I lived in Atlanta. I was hitting listings for land, and it was the same broker every time. Every time. Like the dude that had monopolized all the land listings in the whole area. He just had a a listing agreement for a year, 2 years on everything. Anybody that wanted to sell, hey, let's sign a year listing agreement. And then whenever it felt nobody bought it, he wanted to like monopolize all the listings. So a lot of land brokers, and I'm sure now that you hear this, you're like, oh, I get it now. So these land brokers, since they have a very difficult product that they moved, they try and control as much of the marketplace as possible. That way, if anybody comes ready to buy, they can, oh, I got this over here, I got this over here, I got that over there. They try and push them to everything they got because they kind of have their finger on the pulse on everybody that wants to sell in any given period in any given area, which is a good and bad thing. For instance, we just contracted 2 lots last week. It's from a broker had both lots. He's like, hey, I have this one. I was like, that one looks good. He's like, I also have this one. Oh, that one looks good too. So we just contracted both of them from the same broker, 2 different sellers, I believe. But it's one of those things where that's why they do it, because if we're coming in to buy, I have that agent kind of controls. Like, I got this, and this. What do you want? You kind of pull it on the alley and they pull out the watches. I got da 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 da. I got the fake Rolex. Like they got all the product. They got whatever you need. Yeah, Kyle says those are the typical ones with the cowboy hats. Absolutely, absolutely. So if you go to the listing broker and he or she is not wearing a suit or a pantsuit or something, they're wearing a cowboy hat with suspenders. That's usually the guy. And they're hit or miss. They're hit or miss. We met some good ones. We've met some bad ones, but they're hit or miss. But they're great resources because they have a lot of available property in their listing inventory, that they're a good resource, 100% to hit up.
I'll tell you something right now. Probably about 4 to 5 high level agents that list ranches that are like 5 million, a million, the bigger stuff. None of them do subdivides. I don't know why. It's very strange. I guess they're waiting for that buyer to come along to write that check for 5 million or 10 million. And subdividing is not even on the radar for any of them. So coming in and doing what we do, it's like kind of that missing ingredient that's not really on the front of their mind.
Yep. And a lot of times the agents don't even know. The agents don't know in most cases. Me and Anthony did a podcast that we just released as agents are bad at land. A lot of the ability that we have in the marketplace is because agents are bad at land. I mean, there's no, if they knew how to price stuff right, and they were maneuverable, they can get higher pricing. I guarantee it. Anthony, if you hit an agent up and they're like, yeah, I got 60 acres with frontage, I'll seller finance it to you, but I want comps are 30,000, but I'll sell it to you for 35,000 an acre with some crazy ass terms. We'd probably take it because they're giving us everything. They're giving us ability to subdivide. They're hitting all the things that we want, and they're just listing it just like that. That thing will fly off the shelves because they're positioning their seller to create the product that people buy. Ooh, that's crazy. But that's all agents do. Think about a house agent. Everybody knows a house agent. They're like they do all this market research and like, oh, they have all these different like key strategies of how they're gonna sell their customers' property in under 30 days. You know, we did an open house day one and we had 10 offers over asking. It's all strategy. So imagine if that strategy came to land and they pitched amazing terms for developers. That shit would fly off the shelves. Go ahead, Angie.
Yeah, so I've got a question about, do you have a strategy that you'd like to employ when you've got, especially it's an agent listing some land that does not have a lot of experience, and they probably went and told this person that their land was worth 50% more than it was so that they could get the listing, and now everybody's screwed because it's overpriced. So do you have a strategy for helping them to save face? You're going to go in there and you're going to make this much lower offer that's really much more in line with comps for the land as is. Say for instance it's 100 acres and they've got it priced at the 20 acre. It's 20 acres. They've got it priced at that price per acre. So do you have any strategies for helping them to save face as they're going to go back to their seller and say, hey, we've got an offer here for, say 600,000 instead of a million, but it's really the correct offer because they basically misinformed their seller to start with. And how do they go back and, say, what, actually they showed me some comps here. They can't really go back and say, hey, these guys enlightened me. They showed me the comps and I just told you the wrong information to get this listing.
So the short answer, it's a lot of agent ego, but the long answer is time heals all. When they get beat up enough for long enough, they'll understand that everything was right around that price range. And a lot of times they don't like to see it, but if every offer is coming to right around where market value is, and like I said, there's always that variation. You're gonna have the people that buy high, the people that buy low, and then people that buy in the middle. So if enough buyers hit at different price ranges, you know what where it's at, and it's based off the terms of what they negotiate. So a lot of times it's very nuanced, and it depends how open the agent is. The agent on listing day number 30 may be like, yeah, we're open to offers, but we want our price. But the agent on 180 days in might be like, yeah, we're open to offers, but no one's even called me in the last 6 months. So what do you got? It's a very different conversation depending on where they're at in their listing. Like we contacted properties that were like under like 30 to 45 days in, and we threw some crazy offer and they're like, no, we're just going to wait till we get our price because they're so early in the listing that they're very optimistic. And we still hit them with the offer because most of the time we're shooting fair offers in most cases. Like we're not, I try not to insult people in most cases on their land, on my land offer, but it's usually very right across the bow where it should be. And a lot of times, if it's too early in the listing, they're not ready to hear it because the agent might have in their head what they think it's worth. And they're like, no, I can get a better offer. And that's just them in their mind early on in the listing. Yeah, I can get that price. I can get that price. I can get that price. And then 6 months later, like, I don't know if I can get that price anymore. They have that doubt, that fear of doubt comes in. They kind of feel lowball offers. And they're like, yeah, I don't know if this price makes sense anymore. And they might just be so hard headed. They're like, we're going to get this price, whether it's listed for 5 years or 10 years, I don't know.
Do you actually ever just send comps, someone's like, hey, you know what? These are the 3 nearest comps I'm seeing.
We've done that before. And then, I did that with somebody. I did it with a deal that came in. They're like, oh, that has an easement. And the agent like picked apart. That has this in that. This doesn't have as frontage. I just sold this for that much. And I'm like, well, where's the buyer for that? Why don't you sell them this? Like, I try and whatever the rebuttals are, you kind of rebuttal their. Jason said I did it with agents. She got pissed. So a lot of times, if they're not receptive to it, you're stepping on their toes because they're the professional. So there's a grace you have to do when you're doing this, and it really depends on if the agent's open minded. Kyle had me talk to an agent about a month ago, and she hung up on me because she pissed me off. But she was so one track minded she couldn't even see past her bangs. I don't know. But yeah, it's depends on where they're at, and I think it's the biggest thing is time heals all. It depends on where they're at in the listing. Is my short answer.
Makes sense. Thanks.
All right, let me jump into the questions. Zach says, for underwriting subdivides, anyone have any quick tips on estimating costs of putting infrastructure for water and roads looking at a property in San Antonio? That's a very hard question to ask. James James Dang actually asked me this question today. So we're gonna put together rough estimation based off of putting in water lines, putting in road estimates that we've gotten. We'll have like a basic price per foot, and that might vary differently based on the county and how wide they want it. You know, so that's a very hard question to answer.
As well as ground material,
Yeah, and ground
what you're
material.
having to dig through.
Exactly, 100%. So it's very shooting from the hip type of answer, but it's a very hard one to answer. So like um, let's say you have a road. Everybody's been on the back road, and it's usually 2 lanes with a double yellow line, and then you might be on some back roads where it's like 1.5 lanes and there's no yellow line, like the farm roads. Ever been on those? So depending on where you're at in the county, they might have different specifications of width and type of material that you're putting on the property. So like if we're putting a chip seal road, asphalt, the freeways are cement. So it depends on the materials of the road and where it is in the county specification on what type of materials. You might need curbs. You might need streets, curbs, water, sewer. So it's a very hard question to answer, and a lot of it is you have to. Hey, I don't know the answer to that, but based off of our experience, it's usually in the ABX range, whatever. And like I said, we're going to try and put some calculations to that to kind of arm you guys better whenever people ask that question. But it's a very hard question to answer. Zach, hope that helps. Let me go back to the top. Some agents are just waiting for a savior like a 1031 buyer, but won't work with investors like the damn lottery. Yes, 100%. There are land listings that they just wait for a 1031 buyer to come in and buy them out. It's crazy. It happens all the time. Frank says in Florida, drainage for stormwater runoff becomes an issue also. So this is 100% a fact. So um, Frank kind of makes a pivot for us, but we want to focus on Texas only, and the reason why is we want to be the best buyers in Texas that know Texas standards, estimates, all that stuff. So we're really going to focus really hard on doing Texas entitlements, Texas subdivides only, just because we want to be the best in Texas. And if anybody has a subdivide, I want them to think of the hive mind. So we're going to really drill it hard into Texas for land as a whole for subdivides. So, but to Frank's point, in Florida, drainage, stormwater runoff is a problem because you're in low-lying areas with swamps. So you really have to understand your market, which is really why we're really going to drill down into Texas as a market, because if we understand Texas A to Z more than everybody else, we can see things more than our competitor buyer sees, because we know more nuance and specific things about Texas law and Texas county regulations and Texas uh, deed and deed restrictions and all these things that come with land that most people don't even think about, because whenever they're buying houses, it's just a house. But with land, you really have to understand the A to Z part of it when you're doing this stuff, just because there's so much nuance that comes with deed restrictions and setbacks and pipelines and all the water runoff, and like it can get pretty heavy pretty quick. So we're really going to focus on Texas. Texas has 31 million reasons why to buy here versus elsewhere. 100%. 100%. And I hope that reiterates for you, Jason, as well. There's a big reason why we're doing a lot of deals here, and it's the ease of fulfillment, and we know what we're doing here. 100%. Good questions today. Very good questions. Perk tests everywhere suck. See what I mean? See what I mean? And like we've done Florida deals, but we probably shouldn't have. You know, we probably shouldn't have done those deals. I'm glad that we did them, but we probably shouldn't have done those deals. So we're really going to focus on Texas and Texas only, and around the Texas Triangle, which is Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. and everywhere around that perimeter in some way, shape, or form. So Tyler, which is east of that, we got a deal in the middle of the Texas Triangle, south of Dallas. We got stuff in San Antonio. So we're just going to stick to what we know and what we do best. That's where we're getting the most expertise and the most experience at, and we're getting very proficient at it. Very, very proficient at it. Good questions.
Also being high in demand, right? So if you
Yep,
got
that too.
if you get something in Oklahoma, maybe if it's by Tulsa, maybe Kentucky, same thing, or maybe Tennessee, like Nashville. If you're around these big cities, like over 1 million people, red states, the model probably still works. But then we can't really help you that much out there. I kind of don't know what stuff goes for by Nashville. So if you're in Texas, like it's super high in demand, very reasonable amount of time to sell it, very developer friendly laws. There's a lot of reasons why Texas is people are investing here and coming here quickly.
So somebody sent me this today. It's the 2024 Texas Relocation Report. This is from TexasRealEstate.com. It pretty much talks about the migration patterns, and this is on Texas.com. I'll put it in the chat if you guys want to see it. But the Texas population continued to grow during this time period. Overall, 668,000 people moved to Texas from other states, with a net population gain of 175,000 residents. More than 102,000 Californians relocated to the Lone Star State. And then it shows like the migration. So 102,000 people came from California, Colorado, Oklahoma, Illinois, and Florida, and Louisiana. So I'll put this in the chat if you want to check it out a little bit more. But pretty much show the migration pattern. So we're in an up and coming market where it's favorable to develop, and there's a lot of opportunity. James says if you make an official offer, they have to show the seller. It's 100% correct. As much as we try and like verbally send offers, if you have a question from a while ago, sorry, I didn't see it till now. If you want to make an offer, they have to sell it, and they have to send it if you write it officially on a check. People are moving to red states, especially Texas and Florida. Texas is simple. Florida has a lot of deal killers. I'm assuming he's talking about floodland insurance.
Insurance is a pain in the ass here for sure.
Insurance. I'm thinking the species, the endangered species on raw land.
Yeah, you got tortoises, owls. You got the whole, and you can't just remove them like by hand. You got to call the Florida Wildlife Safety Department. It's like each
Yes,
endangered
true.
species, like 8 to 10 grand to remove. So if you got 20 acres and you got 20 tortoises on that acreage, then you got to pay like 200 grand to remove the damn tortoises. And a lot of them, they'll place them somewhere and then they'll migrate back, and then you got to pay another 10 grand to remove them again.
Man,
And
I'm gonna start a business of removing animals. It sounds like a revolving check.
I think only the
It can
Florida
be.
Wildlife and Safety can do it. No one else can do it, and that's why they,
Man.
yeah.
Sounds like a racket to me.
And of course, they're highly understaffed and overworked.
100%. That's why they charge so much.
Sounds like a racket, man. That's a nice boomerang you create. Let's remove these turtles and they come back.
It's because of all those damn Californians and Texans moving here.
Absolutely.
We'll welcome the Texans.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. So we're really gonna dig down deep into Texas moving forward, and I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's gonna be very, very interesting. There's a lot of movement in the marketplace of listings. I saw a tweet that there's just like so many houses going up for sale right now. So I think the market's shifting right now, and it may be in our favor. Because if we're the only one buying, we're gonna be buying a lot of stuff. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. And you got one more question. Who's got a good question for us?
Just a small question, but again, what determines from us be able to buy like longer than the 50 minutes and the 1 hour radius? Like you said, Tyler, had some people send me stuff in Waco, but I know seller finance is a goal, but wasn't sure what else.
It's a combination of if we can get seller financing or a buy price. A lot of times, what verifies it if we can get a signed LOI from a buyer potentially. So we had a deal come up that it's 2 hours from Dallas, a little bit further than where we want to be, but it's priced. The price was right, and this is where like the further from town you are, the deeper you need to get that deal because the best way to move uh, further out property is to undercut the competition. So you need to get a better deal the further you are out of town. That's just the bottom line. Because if let's say, for instance, the land selling for 10,000 an acre there, I might want to get that thing for 3 to 5 because I'm gonna sell it for 8.
Right.
You know, so you really need to get deeper deals the further you are out of town. Just because you need to provide a pricing deficit where people are like, that's a killer deal. I need to buy that right now. I don't know why it's so cheap. So you need to make it so attractive that people are going to buy it whenever you're farther outside of town.
Okay, that makes sense. And then just because the water source isn't as accessible as our goal is when it's closer to the city.
Absolutely. That's another nuance. Like I said, you got to know what the well cost is because that's the cost that's going to have to go into the pricing of the lot they're going to build or end up living on that property.
Right.
So the stuff that's rural, you really got to get a good deal. And if it's not a great deal, we're not going to buy it because it's one of those things you have to. I can get, let's say it's 10,000 acre, and if I buy it for 5 and sell it for 10, I can get the 10,000 acre, but it might take me a year.
Yeah.
And the longer it sits in the market, the more capital it costs. For the capital stack that we talked about earlier, it's all about your capital stack. So you need to build your deals around capital, and you need to understand how fast deals are going to move based off where they're located.
Gotcha. Yeah, like
And then it's
buy
expected
quick and sell
returns too,
quick.
man.
Yeah.
Expected returns. So for every dollar we spend, we have to make back no less than 2. So if the lady wants $1 million and the max we're going to be able to sell it for is 1.5, that we're not putting $1 million of cash out.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we have to think about that. Is what is the seller going to carry? What can we sell it for? But 2 is a good one. 2.5 is a no brainer. That's our real target is 2.5, but 2 gets you through the door. So if you can't get that back in a reasonable amount of time, then it's not even worth it. And if the only out you have is development, then it's probably not a deal, right? We're willing to put up the cost for the development. Kyle inked one today where the seller's going to carry it until we're done with all the engineering for the neighborhood. So
and we got seller financing
total,
too. We got seller financing too. Even
seller
that.
financing and 2 extensions, giving us a total of 1.5 years to close. So the deals are out there. It takes a lot. How many deals did you have to go through to get to that one?
I probably made like 20 offers or 25 offers or something before.
But no, here's the point I really want to dig at. Kyle, how long have you been negotiating this deal?
Shit, I mean, I joined the Hive like probably 65 days ago, and this was like probably day 15 or day 14 I was within Hive.
So
it's been like
negotiating. He's been negotiating
like 2
this
months.
deal. He's been negotiating this deal for over 40 days with the agents, back and forth, multiple times a day, phone calls, all that stuff. So it took really good negotiations to get this contract over a long time. So that's the big thing. All right, I think we're gonna end it here. Anthony Daniel, we all be interested in West Laco, Texas. Send it to me. We'll look at it. We'll look at any deal anywhere in Texas. 100%. If it's in Texas, we'll look at it. And we're focusing on Texas only. So I am excited to dig in deep and do some crazy deals here in Texas. And we're already making a name for ourselves in the land community in Texas. So this is going to drill down and get bigger and bigger. So I'm hoping we just get pocket listings sent to us just because they know who we are and what we're buying. So if we're top of mind for those properties, that's how you get free leads and free land.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt when you're talking to sellers and agents, let them know that you are with us, you're with HiveMind, and they're starting to recognize us now. The sellers are even starting to recognize us. The national builders are starting to recognize us. So we're becoming a familiar name. So I would start to use that as your front end so that they know they can go search our content and see if we're serious buyers or not.
Yep. Go ahead, Tanisha.
Real quick, I just want to add to what you just said that, you guys are making a name for yourselves in the land business. One of the deals we contracted last week that Anthony was assisting me with negotiating, that was one of the things. The guy said that he Googled us on the Better Business Bureau and he saw that we had good ratings. And so, of course, Anthony went hard on him and he accepted what Anthony wanted. But, it's just, I just want to add that they did say that they wanted to do future deals with us. And so they were, even though it wasn't the price that they wanted to sell it for, they were willing to do this one just to establish some form of relationship so there can be long-term relationship for future deals.
There you go. I didn't even know we're on the Better Business Bureau. That's news to me. That's funny. I do a lot on socials to get us the branding power that we have, and it's only going to get better. So definitely dig into it. I've worked really hard to get that to where it's at now, and it's only getting better. So I'm excited to see it working in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know how it's working, but it's working. But if you dig into the social side, it can really help you out in the long run. All right, I think we're good. Thanks for coming, y'all. I hope y'all learned a lot. I know that the capital stack's kind of hard to digest sometimes, but if you watch some videos about it, you'll understand the financing side of it, which I think will make you a better investor in the long run if you understand that side of it.
Sorry, I was late.
Say it. Go ahead, Frank.
Said sorry I was late.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
Had another meeting.
You're good, man. It happens. Everybody here, we'll see you next week. Mother's Day is coming up. Don't forget your mother or your wife or spouse.
Yep.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.